Last week I said I was pretty excited to finally see the backstory with Norman and how he broke out of Gracefield along with his merry gang of psychopaths. And while this episode was a very good episode of The Promised Neverland, likely the best episode of this season, they are still going at an extremely fast pace. Maybe one of the fastest paced episodes of the season thus far. So with that out of the way, let's talk about Promised Neverland Season 2, Episode 8. And as well, be sure to subscribe to never miss a Promised Neverland video. Let's get into it. We begin the episode with Norman and how he broke out of Gracefield, and he was experimented upon and made to do tests. He had perfect scores, although while he was doing what he was told by James Rattree, yes, that James Rattree, who even after this episode, we're not too sure what his goals ever are, he eventually breaks out despite not showing the setup of how he does it. He just kind of randomly does it. So this is one of the downsides of having a rushed adaptation, as small details that are very important are outright omitted to keep the pace up. This scene is the worst of the episode, really, and just doesn't represent what happens after this in the episode. Because we still have no reason to why Norman is dying and coughing up blood. And if you say the medications they gave him are doing that, then keep in mind the anime said nothing. A good story explains everything and doesn't leave important story elements up to the viewer's imagination to figure out. Some nice tidbits about this scene is the imagery, which, much like the whole episode, is really heinous and just horrifying in such a way that Season 1 wasn't even horrifying. The duality hallways of the facilities, one where the experimented upon humans are pretty much brain dead or debilitated to play in bright, colorful rooms more meant for babies or small children, the other where you see demons feast on the humans in a wild frenzy. In many ways, this episode was almost like Jacob's Ladder. Another element is the humans that are kept alive, and as a person who's read some of what happens after in this manga, in the manga, these people are just described as humans who are there to just be kept alive, not even meant to learn a language, see, or hear anything. It's quite horrifying. But once again, this is the manga, just to give you context. This scene is still pretty rushed and pretty bad. Otherwise, honestly, this scene was just quite a letdown, and by the end we see Norman says he wants to kill all the demons, but honestly, even from what I see, Norman's logic just seems to be flawed, as he has seen what has happened only in this facility. And I don't know, I don't feel like I've been given a good enough reason for Norman to want to do, a genocide to a whole race of demons just because of one group, just because of one facility. I don't know. Seems kind of lackluster to me. Now, everything else in this episode is pretty much perfect besides the Norman stuff, if I'm to be honest. And while the downside is that this episode felt extremely rushed throughout, I cannot deny they made the episode flow very well between these very rushed sequences and scenes. After the Norman stuff, the Gracefield kids are on their own trying to track down Sonju and Mujika to help save Norman and the demons, but they're having trouble tracking them down, which I think the anime is supposed to make you think they're being tracked down by Sonju and Mujika, but honestly, I cannot tell with some threads in this anime what they mean or what you're supposed to glean from them. Once again, that is the downside of these rushed adaptations. It relies on the audience to fill in the gaps, which is just not the way you should do it, and it's quite ridiculous. While they're trying to track down Mujika and Sonju, we see Norman and his gang prepare the biological weapons, which still hasn't been explained how he even made them, let alone would disperse it, for their genocidal war against the demons. Did we see Norman on the top of a cliff, telling us, the audience seemingly, that he will willingly become a god or the devil to save everyone? But once again, I feel this scene, while being very good on its own in the context of the anime, it seems to just be a little weird. This is because Norman goes from obviously shades of gray bad guy to just full-on genocidal Norman. I think besides this, the last scene with Norman, anything with Norman in this episode really just drags the episode down from a logic perspective. Though I cannot deny that in the moment, and if you can somehow ignore how fast-paced this episode is, it's still a very good scene. I do know for a fact that the art in this scene was off the charts, much like this whole episode really was. Back to the rest of the Gracefield kids, they run into a gigantic lizard-like demon in the forest, which leads to a suspenseful and well-paced action sequence with good CGI, good animation, and a great climax, and the return of Sonju and Mujika. and I can just say, this anime really needed these two's presence, and every moment they were away, you could just tell how boring the show got. I think Mujika really adds something to the overall feeling of the show that you just can't help but get excited for. And then you have Sonju, who is just kind of icing on the cake because you know this guy can destroy pretty much anything with how powerful he seems to be. Honestly, I'm really glad Mujika and Sonju are back, and if we get more of them, then I'm really happy to just see them more in this series. Even if the next 4 episodes are just utter crap, which there may be a chance that is. Then we get a big final climactic sequence that, while awesome, I do have some qualms over, and you know, guess who's in the scene? You guessed it, Big Daddy Phil. No, just kidding, it's our favorite white-haired genocidal boy, Naaman. He starts using his biological weapons on the demons, which turns into a vicious frenzy that, once again, man, Cloverworks just knocks out of the park from a visual perspective at the very least. Also, most emotional moments were executed extremely well, like the little demon girl named Emma crying. Also, big plus to the voice actors in this scene, they did amazing. Then the old man, who is revealed to be like Mujika and has blood that can stop the demon's degradation, uses it to save the little demon girl in a very, very well done sequence. Though once again, Norman in this scene, just not a big fan of him. And that's simply, I think, because his character this whole season has just been suffering. And it's obvious his character requires a lot of development to get to this point. Development his character just did not receive, and thus I feel a disconnect with Norman in most scenes he's in, even this amazing one. But still, once again, where the hell is Mother Isabella at? She showed up in this episode through a flashback, but I feel like I'm beating a dead horse by saying her presence really needs to be felt in this show. They dedicated a good portion of an episode to her, made it obvious she would be an integral part of the show, and then proceeded to have her remain absent. We are firmly within the endgame for Promised Neverland now, and the fact she is all but forgotten is a real shame and an absolute failure of this adaptation. There is no excuses to not come up with something for such an iconic character when you have the episodes we've had up in this series until now. Why waste all of this time rushing an adaptation and cutting out multiple parts when you could have taken the time to make this anime more anime original and have Mother Isabella in the show interacting and being a looming threat? It's disappointing, and every episode she remains a non-factor in is an active mark against the series as a whole. Either way, this episode was a very good episode, and likely the best episode of the season thus far. I was impressed by so many things, from art to animation to voice acting, and the return of characters like Mujika and Sonju. Yeah, that was a big moment. Even the reveal of the old man demon and demon Emma was great, despite it being out of nowhere due to the nature of this adaptation thus far. I think at this point, we're long past this series being saved, so as of this moment, we might as well enjoy this pretty horrid adaptation overall when we can. If you're wondering if they'll ever give this adaptation a FMA Brotherhood styled adaptation after the backlash from the series, well then check out my most recent video where I talk about just that and how it probably won't be happening anytime soon or ever. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. I cover AOT weekly along with A Promised Neverland, and in April we'll be covering the Fruits Basket final season every Tuesday on this channel. As well, many other new anime in the upcoming season that you simply just don't want to miss. I also have a Patreon where I upload exclusive content there, and a Discord which you all should join. Thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.